As the press TV, Argentina is complaining to the United Nations over Britain's militarization of the Malvinas dispute. Lebanon's Hezbollah says Iran's all-out support helped the resistance movement defeat Israel.
We receive moral, political, and material support in all its forms.
And Russia says its talks with NATO over U.S. missile plans in Europe have reached a dead end. Hello and welcome, live from Tehran. This is Press TV's World News. Thanks so much for joining us. Well, Argentina says it will lodge a formal protest at the United Nations over what it calls Britain's militarization of the disputed Malvinas Islands. Argentine President Cristina Fernández de Kirchner was speaking to Malvinas war veterans and opposition leaders. This ahead of the 30-year anniversary of the war Argentina and Britain fought over the territory, which is also known as the Falklands. Kirchner said the region's militarization will pose a serious risk to international security. Her comments followed the deployment of a British warship to the region and the dispatch of Prince William to the Malvinas Islands. Buenos Aires is also outraged at reports that Britain has moved a nuclear submarine to the region. Kirchner said the issue of the islands has now turned into a global cause. Well, Gretchen Small with the Executive Intelligence Review joined us a short while ago to discuss the Argentina-UK row. She praised Argentina's decision to file a complaint at the UN over Britain's militarization of the islands.
I think that this is a very useful initiative on the part of the Argentine president to take to the United Nations, both the General Assembly and the Security Council, the fact that it is the British colonial power which is militarizing the South Atlantic. And that includes building a base, you know, right, in the St. Helens. They're taking their St. Helens Island and building that into a major base now. They're sending their nuclear submarines down into the area. It's not the Argentines who are militarizing this, but it is the Empire of Great Britain which has done this, and they should stop it. This is a very useful thing to do for the cause of world peace when we are on the very edge of global thermonuclear war being provoked by that British monarchy. So I just wanted stated that I think this was an excellent move on her part.
Well, Hezbollah's Secretary General says the Lebanese resistance movement has received moral, political, and material support from Iran in all its forms.
First of all, yes, we receive support. We receive moral, political, and material support in all its forms from the Islamic Republic of Iran. We have been receiving this support ever since 1982. This is something which the Islamic Republic should be proud of, because this resistance in Lebanon, which achieved the biggest and most important and most clear Arab victory against Israel on the 25th of May, the year 2000, this victory would not have been achieved were it not for this moral and material or financial support, Iranian support for the resistance movement in Lebanon.
Said Hassan Nasrallah also criticized the U.S. policy towards the Middle East, saying Washington has only two concerns in the region, Israel and oil. He also touched on the situation in Syria. He said Hezbollah has no role there and that the ongoing situation does not benefit either side in the country.
A very significant segment of Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah's speech centered on the latest propaganda concerning the so-called Shiite expansion, stressing that Hezbollah and Iran do not seek to convert the Sunni world into Shiites, but consider all other groups as being united under the banner of Islam.
There is neither a Shia tide nor a Sunni tide. After the Iraqi war on Iran failed, they tried to create sedition, and the talk about Iranian and Shia tide was used as an element of soft war against Iran.
Iranian assistance to the resistance has lately undergone criticism by some Arab states on the basis that it implies Iranian dictates for the resistance to implement Iranian interests in the region. Said Hassan Nasrallah stressed that Hezbollah receives from Iran the moral, political, and material support in all its available forms since 1982, and that this support was instrumental in the defeat of Israel. However, at the same time, Iran had never dictated conditions in exchange for its support, as Nasrallah pointed out. The rapid changes taking place in the region seem to be part of the everyday political talk. In light of the critical events taking place in the region, especially the crisis in Syria, there is a growing fear of a sectarian war and an even greater urge for Islamic unity. Hezbollah's rally today is part of a strong campaign against sedition as stipulated by the teachings of Prophet Muhammad. Concerning the crisis in Syria, Sayyid Nasrallah considered that what is happening now has not reached the stage of a sectarian war, despite the fact that there is an Israeli-U.S. consensus, with some Arab states that the Syrian regime should be taken down at any cost. Sunni religious figures attended the ceremony and considered that the West has always striven to divide the Muslims in order to prevail.
It is time to actualize the call for unity, especially since our Muslim nation is witnessing an attack from the Zionists and the U.S. The road of resistance can be victorious if we are united.
Founder of the Islamic Republic of Iran, Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini, considered the commemoration of the birth of Prophet of Islam as a time for unity among the Muslims, whether Sunnis or Shiites. Mariam Saleh, Press TV, Beirut.
And now to Syria, where the government's battle against what it calls foreign-backed armed gangs continues in several cities. This as the division between world powers over the months-long unrest grows wider. A Russian foreign minister has met with the Syrian president in Damascus after last week's vetoing of a Western-backed resolution at the UN Security Council. This as China has also said that it is considering sending envoys to Damascus. Now, reports from inside Syria talk of a U.S. scenario which paves the way for a full-scale military attack by Syria's neighbors and Israel.
Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov arrived in Damascus along with head of Foreign Intelligence Service Mikhail Fratkov for talks with President Bashar al-Assad. President al-Assad briefed the Russian minister on the reform process and the latest developments in Syria. The president said that the committee responsible for conducting dialogue with all opposition members, headed by the vice president, still enjoys its powers. Sergei Lavrov said all parties should take part in dialogue in Syria. Lavrov described the visit as very positive. He said his country will continue coordinating with the Syrian leadership in order to reach a solution for the Syrian crisis, away from foreign intervention. Lavrov also called for solving the Syrian problem according to the agreed-upon Arab League plan signed on the 2nd of November 2011. In a press statement following his meeting with President Assad, Lavrov said that President Assad expressed commitment to putting an end to violence from all sources as it was agreed in the Arab Plan of Action, and pointed out to the importance of keeping the Arab League mission of observers active for that purpose.
Efforts to end violence from all sources should be followed up, and dialogue should be conducted with the participation of all Syrians. We think that the Arab League Observers mission should be active and expanded.
The visit comes only a few days following Russian and Chinese vetoes on a UN resolution against Syria. Analysts said the visit expresses the solid Russian stand towards Syria.
Lavrov's visit expresses Russia's political support for Syria. Coordination between both countries is important. The Russian veto on visit affirmed that the U.S. no longer controls international resolutions taking for its interests.
Meanwhile, a large number of Syrians rallied on the airport highway in Damascus to welcome the Russian foreign minister in Damascus. They raised placards and Syrian and Russian flags in a show of gratitude for the Russian stands in support of Syria.
We are here to thank Russia and China for the double veto and their support for Syria.
Syrians also held banners thanking in various languages Russia's veto that foiled a UN resolution against Syria. They also expressed rejection of foreign interference in their internal affairs. They raised posters of President Bashar al-Assad reiterating support for his reform program. Coordination between Russia and China continues for finding a way out of the Syrian crisis. The Russian foreign minister's visit asserts once again the strong relations between both countries and people, as the visit was warmly welcomed on a popular level in Syria. Hamad Ali, Press TV, Damascus.
Well, U.S. Republican Senator John McCain says Washington should consider arming Syrian opposition groups. McCain says diplomacy with regards to Syria has failed and that all options should be discussed, including arming the opposition and imposing a no-movement zone. He made the remarks during a meeting with visiting Israeli Foreign Minister Avigdor Lieberman in Washington. This comes a day after the United States closed its embassy in Syria. Well, Russia says its talks with NATO over the planned U.S. missile system in Europe have reached a dead end. Russian negotiator Anatoly Antonov has once again criticized the proposed U.S. missile system, calling it a threat to Russia's security. Antonov said Moscow may pull out of the Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty with the U.S. Earlier, Russian Prime Minister Vladimir Putin also accused Washington and NATO of pointing the missile system at his country. He rejected the West's claims that the system aims to counter an Iranian threat. NATO agreed to develop a missile system in 2010. Moscow has repeatedly slammed the move, calling it a threat. Recently, the Russian president also warned that Moscow will respond by deploying its own missiles. Let's switch over to Sonoma, California, joined by online columnist Alan Rowland. Alan, thank you so much for being with us. How likely is it that Russia will pull out of those talks now and saying that basically this situation that's happening is a threat to Russian security? And welcome to the program.
Thank you, Messiah. And let me say this, always a pleasure being on Press TV. But Russia is responding after U.S. Defense Secretary Leon Panetta outlined the plans, which would see, get this, a radar system in Turkey, interceptor missiles stationed in Romania and Poland, 4 ballistic missile defense-capable ships in Rota, Spain, and an operational headquarters in Germany. So even though Panetta is saying that Obama has made it clear that the United States is firmly committed to building a missile system in Europe, this has got all types of different categories going for it. And Russia has every right to slam it and say no dice. Now, it should be made clear here that the U.S. has said that the missile shield is aimed at deflecting potential missile threats from Iran, including possible attacks on Russia. But Russia feels it will eventually grow powerful enough to undermine its own nuclear deterrent, and they have every right to think that. So this is once more demonizing Iran, trying to enlist other big powers, superpowers in the whole process. Russia is seeing through this obvious bamboozle, and rightfully saying no. As a matter of fact, we'll build up our own defense system too. And otherwise, it's a Cold War redux. So, no, Russia's right. The United States is flexing its muscle again and once again demonizing Iran.
Well, Alan, why is this the case? Why are they flexing their muscles one more time? I mean, it seems like the United States is involved everywhere right now in the world. Why do they want to, let's say, take Russia on in these present circumstances?
It's payback time. Guess who basically just vetoed the resolution in the UN? Mm-hmm. Russia and China. China was the big surprise.